Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, dear Pater. Happy birthday to me. Recording this on my birthday, April 11th. And I've watched the first 3 episodes of Fallout. Not only is this my pick so far for best game or best game to TV or movie adaptation, it's looking like it might be a future all-time favorite TV series of mine. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. The IMDb synopsis for Fallout Season 1 reads, "In a future post-apocalyptic Los Angeles brought about by nuclear decimation, citizens must live in underground bunkers to protect themselves from radiation, mutants, and bandits." That doesn't say near enough about what this show is. Of course, if you've played the games, you have some sense of the world, at least, that we're getting into, but the show it feels significantly different from the game. Why is that? Because the game is an open world experience where you have a blank slate character that you can make be whatever you want. You can make all kinds of ridiculous choices. A lot of the humor in the games emerges from you on kind of a meta level where you see kind of some of the janky mechanics, some of the weird wooden behaviors of the characters you interact with. And so in transplanting that to a story that we would passively watch, I knew they were going to have to make some very significant choices that had not been made in the flavor of the game. How is this in any way going to play out? I am so pleased with what they have done here. Let me just get into what this basic animal feels like. It's an ensemble cast. There are 3 mains, I would say. Lucy being one. She's a young vault dweller who must venture to the surface world to find her dad. Maximus, a member of the militant Brotherhood of Steel who wants to become a knight, but is in way over his head. And the Ghoul, a nearly immortal yet decayed-looking man cursed to live on even hundreds of years after surviving the nuclear war that made the world what it is. Compared to the games, it's much more dramatic, much more heavy and serious, especially at the beginning, but still with frequent humor resulting from the naive ideals of the people of the past, the vault dwellers, clashing with the jaded survivors of the present who have been living in a miserable, tortured existence for, at least a few generations. It's very character-driven, with relationships and or relational tragedy at the heart of what's going on in pretty much at least 2 out of 3 of the main characters. But it's also presenting a rich world with lore just oozing out all over the place in little visual hints here and there that I think are Easter eggs for fans, but also just world building for people that are stepping into the world of Fallout for the first time through this show. Yet all of that lore that's oozing out everywhere does not bog down the story. There's not a bunch of exposition dumps. You're just learning as you go along, which I much prefer over the alternative. The plot is also always moving forward and taking some unexpected turns. It's a nearly unprecedented, in my experience, blend of storytelling that combines character-driven, concept-driven, and story-driven values all at once. Usually, the fiction that I watch or read, it really leans hard into one of those things for people that like that particular type of story. But I feel like, even as someone who really does prefer character-driven, so I can't speak for sure to what concept-driven and story-driven fans or viewers might think of this, but it seems like it's probably delivering for them too. The heaviness of the opening surprised me as a fan of the games. I'm used to a much more loosey-goosey, relaxed, not emotionally weighty type of experience playing the Fallout games. But it was really heavy and shocking. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is horrible what happened. And the personal stakes, the personal cost involved, that's even just hinted at, not fully shown, was just heart-wrenching to watch. But it delighted me as a fan of weighty and intense drama and stakes that matter. I don't just, as a nerd, like all the explosive, weird, wild stuff that comes with sci-fi and fantasy, all the light shows and the dazzling effects and stuff. I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want that, but I also want stuff that's emotionally grounded, that I can emotionally relate to. It was so sad and shocking to see the world come to an end. And the Ghoul, who serves as sort of a tragic villain in the present day post-apocalyptic world, he's already someone that I care about and relate to, even as he does terrible things that I certainly can't support. I think journey also really defines the basic structure here. Even if you're not into that character stuff, there's always a sense of moving forward, starting very early on. Multiple characters are all after the same thing, and they're taking a journey across the wasteland to get it, which naturally sets up one interesting encounter or event after another, showing more of this weird world and giving the characters chances to show who they are in reaction to those things, or gives the characters a chance to change and adapt who they are in response to those things. So, in terms of story ingredients, it has so much that I appreciate. Serious stakes, shocking dark humor, bizarre creatures, daringly rule-breaking, unpredictable moments like "I cannot believe you just did that," flawed characters that I can care about with tragic and humanizing motives that really connect with me emotionally, explosive action, brutal violence that serves both the humor and the weighty intensity of the story, and a world that, despite sharing a very overdone post-apocalyptic premise, it still has unique character, flavor, and lore that strongly sets it apart from other post-apocalyptic stories. Loving the games, I really think I can say, plays almost no role in loving this show. I was hyped for this show because of what I started seeing in the trailers. I was like, oh, this looks like it could be my kind of show. I was not just blindly into it because it was going to be, Fallout, I've seen plenty of movies and things like that based on properties I love, and I'm really disappointed, So, really, so much of my love for the games is the gameplay mechanics. I don't love this show for its gameplay mechanics. I love this show for its story and characters, and that's never been something I've loved the games for. So it is its own experience with its own strengths, and it hits the things that I really care about in so many ways. As far as the cast goes, great and very fitting casting, I felt like, across the board. Ella Purnell she has big eyes, and she plays wide-eyed, big-eyed naivete wonderfully, even as I also find myself investing in her pain and struggle. So I'm buying into more than just the naivete. I'm buying into the emotional struggle that she's experiencing. And she's also funny in some of the really naive things that come out of her mouth. Aaron Moten, if I'm pronouncing that right, as the Brotherhood Squire Maximus. Man, he's interesting. He displays a sort of vulnerable cowardice evolving into courage while still remaining too petty of a character at this point for me to admire. So just a fascinating character to watch. Walton Goggins, though, as the Ghoul, especially shines in the flashbacks that reveal his life before the bombs fell. Goggins is known for playing villains, as he did throughout the series Justified, which is probably the role he is most known for, and also has that same kind of southern drawl in play in this role as well. And he's great here as a villain as well, even beneath all that makeup. But I suspect that the softness and endearing moral goodness of his character portrayal in flashbacks are going to paint a complete picture that will have me in tears at some point soon. That's my suspicion, my strong suspicion at this point. As far as stunts and visuals, I think this is premium streaming service quality TV. A lot of budget thrown into this, and I'm very glad for that. It's not the very best in terms of visual effects, but pretty high up there. And the diverse and extravagant sets just immerse me in the world. It looks so practical. Maybe there's some subtle things being done that are CG in the sets, the environments and stuff. But man, some of the junk towns and stuff that they show, the vault interiors and stuff. Oh, lots of great practical sets that I'm just like, wow. And the Brotherhood of Steel armor, the big kind of pseudo mech suits, Iron Man style armor that they're in. I'm pretty sure it's practical with few exceptions. We did see somebody, I think, walk on stage at like an E3 or something like that in this armor. I think probably to make the point that, hey, we're doing this practical. And it looks great. And I'm just wondering, man, how are they doing that? How does that suit work? So much practical goodness. I think there's a few Brotherhood of Steel armor moments that are CG, but I think it's practical most of the time. There are a few brief effects shots that show their weakness, but those, in my experience, are the exception at this point. I have no significant complaints about the visual presentation of this show and the quality behind it. Okay, themes. Is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? Well, each episode, I think, has more than one little moment or theme here and there that could be drawn out and talked about. I remember with each of these first 3.5, I guess, episodes that I've watched so far, I've seen things like, oh, that's an interesting, point, an interesting theme they're playing with there. But then the story kind of moves on and I forget about it, and then some other theme will kind of pop out. So some of these kind of like thematic things kind of come and go before they really make a strong point. But I can still see them providing springboards for thought and conversation. But really the larger encompassing theme is one of morality in a broken world. And even though this is a post-apocalyptic world, I think this is very relevant to our natural lives today. We recognize that the world is messed up. And sometimes we might find ourselves thinking, why bother? Why bother living a virtuous life? Whether we're Christians or not. Now, as Christians, there's an answer to that provided in Scripture. But people coming from other perspectives, they're going to have to look elsewhere, and they might not really have any solid footing for that. In fact, I would argue at the end of the day, they don't. But yeah, the big question here is living morally versus surviving. Most post-apocalyptic fiction has this as a main theme or an overriding question. That was certainly the case in The Walking Dead. Despite referencing the so-called golden rule taught by Jesus in one episode so far, I suspect the show is going to ultimately lean toward humanism or naturalism, this sort of like, let's just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and be good because we all know that's what we should do. Okay, but is there any objective reasoning provided for why we should do that? Yes, we all agree on some level we should be good, or most of us agree to that. But objectively, philosophically, why? Reason out logically why we should be good. I don't think they're going to answer that question. I think they're just going to insist that goodness should be pursued and count on the fact that most audience members, for whatever reason, will agree with that sentiment. So I think they're going to lean toward humanism or naturalism in some sense, but maybe not. I mean, either way, the show asks many times in different ways, why bother being good when life sucks so bad? And over 3.5 episodes in, that's still an open question. The objective answer that God reveals in the Bible is that we have objective purpose and value that just in the basis of being made as reflections of who God is, being made in the image of God, and being made for a purpose that we can choose or not to engage with that extends into eternity, that we were made for, and that we can begin to choose to live out in crucial ways in this life. But without a higher objective value given to humanity, without purpose beyond this life, hedonism and nihilism are about all that we have left. Now, I don't have any hope that Fallout is going to point to objective, transcendent meaning and purpose for humanity. But it may still show naturalism to be the dark and nihilistic path that it objectively supports, which in turn can act as a springboard for viewers to consider an alternative to the dark self-destruction of naturalism taken to its logical, philosophical end. All right, I have no idea what your tastes are in TV shows, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, good grief, stop talking about Fallout. Do your dumb review and finish up your workday so you can get back to watching Fallout. If it keeps up what it starts with in the first 3 episodes, it's just going to be one of your favorite TV shows of all time. This one's rated TVMA for violence, substance use, alcohol use, foul language, and sexual content. And those are all my thoughts for now on Fallout on Amazon Prime, episodes 1 through 3. Ish and a half, maybe. As always, I'd love to get your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making so much of my content possible. You can get info about the benefits of joining at patreon.com/spiritblade productions. Then I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all CGC content at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.